All right, hello, Mr. Kennedy here. So everyone, we're now on chapter 4. So in this chapter, we're going to be learning about Mesopotamia. And in lesson 1, we're going to do some geography and learn about these people we call the Sumerians. So here we go. Let's dive into chapter 4, talking about the Mesopotamians. So Sumerians made important advances in areas such as farming and writing that laid out the foundation for future civilizations. So here we go.
Cut that middle part out and just put it back.
So here we go. We're going to go ahead and open up with a hot question. Don't worry right now if you're following along in your packet on lesson 1 about the current map right now. Right now, we're going to label those rivers in class about the Tigris and Euphrates. So we're going to do that part in class. But as far as your hot question goes, we're going to answer this hot question. Why might the earliest settlers in Mesopotamia have decided to settle in the area between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers? So I want you to predict 2 benefits and 2 drawbacks to living in such an area. So remember our hot questions. We've been grading these, and I want 3 to 5 sentences with vocabulary when answering 2 benefits and 2 drawbacks to living in the area between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Give you some time to answer that. Remember, you can pause this to answer this question correctly.
Hi.
Make it big. So there you go.
Oh, see, Miss Hodges is helping me. Okay. I'll get the technology thing. I promise. Okay. So, the first civilizations of Mesopotamia. Okay, Mesopotamia. The land of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The Fertile Crescent is a curving strip of fertile land from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf. So what I want you to do is take a moment here to look at this green area right here. This green area is shaped like, if you've ever eaten one of those Pillsbury crescent rolls, you know, those yummy buttery rolls, that is what the Fertile Crescent looks like. It kind of looks like a crescent roll. So it's always shaded green because it's a very fertile area. If you look over here at this picture, you can see how green that land is. When the first humans migrated out of Africa and they were looking for a place to settle, they needed to find an area that had fertile land and was near water. And one of those first places was Mesopotamia. So something to help you remember, I'm going to give you a little hint. Are you ready? Tigris and Euphrates. Tigris, you remember, is the river that's on top. T&T, Tigris top, okay? Euphrates is under. Remember that. Tigris is top, Euphrates is under. Okay, the early valley dwellers. 7000 BC, people first settle in Mesopotamia. Right there. See the green? It says Okay. 4000 BC, some groups begin building farming villages in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. Again, Tigris is top, Euphrates is under. Under, okay? 3000 BC, civilizations develop in Sumer, which is southern Mesopotamia. Sumer is right there. It is right by the Persian Gulf where the Tigris and Euphrates flow into. Bye.
All right, so after Ms. Tickle told you a little bit about the early dwellers and where they lived in between these 2 rivers, we want to talk about taming these rivers and how the people that lived in Mesopotamia were able to get together and live in this area and live safely. So the area between these 2 rivers, Mesopotamia, The word Mesopotamia actually means the land between two rivers, and you saw that on a slide earlier. So the land between these two rivers is going to be a very fertile place to live. You saw how green it was and how much green grass there was, but surrounding everything else is desert. And so it's really hard to live there unless you have some water. So they are going to have water, but the problem is that the water is going to be unpredictable, and they don't know exactly when they're going to have rain and when they're not. So in the summertime, there's going to be little or no rainfall, and not much fell at all. So the rivers became very low, and the farmers didn't have enough water to plant crops. So we have to have crops, and we need that surplus so that we can live there. And in the summertime, there was little to no rain. In the springtime, after we go through summer and into the fall and then the winter, and now we're into the spring, it would begin to rain again, and snow from the mountains that are surrounding these rivers, and we'll talk about that geography in class. The water on top would melt, and from those mountains, and it would cause the rivers to overflow and lead to violent floods. And they never knew when that was going to happen. So they knew it would start to warm up, and they knew that that they would come, but they never knew exactly when they were going to come. They could not predict that. And that made it difficult to live there. But it made it possible to live there. So there were some good things about the flood. Some of the benefits of the flood was the fact that it brought special soil called silt. And we just don't say rich dirt. Historians like to be fancy with their words. And so this is silt, which just means rich, beautiful, black, good, fertile soil. And it's good for growing crops. And it's left behind when the flooding waters recede. It leaves behind good silt. So the people that lived in those lands between those two rivers, Tigris on top and Euphrates on the bottom, had to come up with a way to live there safely. So their solution was to build dams and canals and to let that water flood somewhere else and control where it would go, and that's led to irrigation. And that was one way that they were able to control these unpredictable floods. So that when they could control all that area, that led to city-states. The first thing that's going to happen is that silt is going to allow them to have a surplus. And you know what happens when you have a surplus? Now we can stay in one place. We have specialization develops. And so that silt is going to lead to everybody had to farm. Now we can have those artisans and skilled workers again. And that's important because that will lead us to trade. And people trade because it's beneficial for them. So people began to live in places together that would help them trade. These little farming villages would grow into big cities. And by the year 3000 BC, several grew in Sumer, which is in the southern part of Mesopotamia, down near the Persian Gulf, and Babylon. And we're going to look at those cities down there. Sumer, and Babylon are going to be the three main cities that we look at. And then we'll also look at one up north in Assyria called Nineveh. And these city-states developed. Then you can see all that they have developed right down here. This is a very complex, let's go back. This is a very complex kind of city here. You can see that they've built all kinds of things. And in this little area right here, you've got ziggurats, and you've got, we'll talk about what a ziggurat is back here in the back, and you can see they're living on top of these buildings. So we're going to see a great city-state that arises. So that's lesson 1, guys. See you soon. Ooh. Sorry, I don't want to go that far. How do I stop now? Escape? No, that's not working. Over the
See, I don't know.
Chrome button.
I don't see a Chrome button.
The little Chrome button at the bottom.
There's no Chrome button. Hold on. I'm calling in backup.
Oh.
Keep. See, there's backup.
Y'all messing up again?
Not much.